Hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and thank you so much for joining me in studying A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students. We're reading from the original edition here on February the 4th of 2023, Lesson 35. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Can we say that about ourselves? My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Today's idea does not describe the way you see yourself now. It does, however, describe what vision will show you. It is difficult for anyone who thinks he is in this world to believe this of himself. Yet the reason he thinks he is in this world is because he does not believe it. You will believe that you are part of where you think you are. That is because you surround yourself with the environment you want, and you want it to protect the image of yourself that you have made. The image is part of this environment. What you see while you believe you are in it is seen through the eyes of the image. This is not vision. Images cannot see. The idea for today presents a very different view of yourself. By establishing your source, it establishes your identity, and it describes you as you really must be in truth. And source and identity were capitalized, referring to divinity, to God. The idea for today presents a very different view of yourself. By establishing your source, it establishes your identity. And it describes you as you must really be in truth. We will use a somewhat different kind of application for today's idea because the emphasis for today is on the perceiver rather than on what he perceives. For each of the 3 5-minute practice periods today, begin by repeating today's idea to yourself, and then close your eyes and search your mind for the various kinds of descriptive terms in which you see yourself. Include all the ego-based attributes which you ascribe to yourself, positive or negative, desirable or undesirable, grandiose or debased. All of them are equally unreal because you do not look upon yourself through the eyes of holiness. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy, but he wants us to look at the way we perceive ourselves. This lesson's about the perceiver. And so we're going to tell ourselves, how do we perceive ourselves? So we're going to take 3 5-minute practice periods today, as well as your hourly or, throughout the day remembrance. In the earlier part of the mind-searching period, you will probably emphasize what you consider to be the more negative aspects of your perception of yourself. Toward the latter part of the exercise period, however, more self-inflating descriptive terms may well cross your mind. Try to recognize that the direction of your fantasies about yourself does not matter. He's calling them fantasies about ourselves. Illusions have no direction in reality. They are merely not true. A suitable unselected list for applying the idea for today might be as follows. I see myself as imposed on. I see myself as depressed. I see myself as failing. I see myself as endangered. I see myself as helpless. I see myself as victorious. I see myself as losing out. I see myself as charitable. I see myself as virtuous. And that's just, you don't have to use those words. Those are just some things you might come to your mind. Of course, they apply, I use them. But any kind of descriptive term is what we're looking for. And say to yourself in that 5-minute mind searching, I see myself as. And those were some examples. You should not think of these terms in an abstract way. They will occur to you as various situations, personalities, and events in which you figure cross your mind. Pick up any specific situation that occurs to you, identify the descriptive term or terms which you feel are applicable to your reactions to that situation, and use them in applying today's idea. After you have named each one, add, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. So actually we're going to say this, I see myself as whatever, and then we'll say, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And then move on to the next perception of yourself. You're trying to see what you perceive, how you're perceiving things. And then always end it by saying, but my mind is very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. During the longer exercise periods, there will probably be intervals in which nothing specific occurs to you. Do not strain to think up specific things to fill the interval, but merely relax and repeat today's idea slowly until something occurs to you. Although nothing that does occur should be omitted from the exercises, nothing should be dug out with effort. Neither force nor discrimination should be used. So can we just relax and let it kind of go by without using force, without digging it out? Just let it surface of its own. As often as possible during the day, pick up a specific attribute or attributes you are ascribing to yourself at the time and apply the idea for today to them, adding the idea to each of them in the form stated above. If nothing particular occurs to you, merely repeat the idea to yourself with closed eyes. So throughout the day, and I'd encourage you, maybe once an hour, because eventually he's going to get to where he's wanting us to think of these things all day long, and he'll have us kind of do it by the hour. But at this point, just let maybe the need, if you feel yourself thinking about some way you're perceiving yourself, tell yourself, I see myself as, and name that thing. Maybe close your eyes for a minute throughout the day. Just take a minute, maybe even less than a minute, maybe only a few seconds. But then after you've said, I see myself as, however you're perceiving yourself, then add, but my mind is very holy. Or my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And you may want to write it down so that you've got it in your pocket, ready to pull it out and say, now what was that lesson? My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as, and then my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And we'll do a couple minute little primer meditation at the end, okay? Let's go take a look in our text now. And let's look at the last section of chapter 4, the root of all evil. Section 9, true rehabilitation. True rehabilitation. And while you're turning there, let me tell you about another capsicum annuum, the Craig's Grande Jalapeno. And I'm reading to you out of the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Catalog. And this the Craig's Grande Jalapeno, I expect probably is the way it's pronounced. A big fat jalapeno that is perfect for making lots of salsa. Perfect for anyone who loves jalapenos. It is thick, flavorful, hot flesh. Developed at Redwood City Seeds. We love this one. So it's the Craig's Grande Jalapeno. So, the peppers I like to always grow each year is a jalapeno, a cayenne, and your cayenne is so medicinal, so many good qualities, high in vitamin C. They're all high in vitamin C. But we'll talk more about maybe some of their values. But right now, just those two, and then the bell pepper, and then some poblanos. Those are the four that I'd encourage anybody. If you really like hot peppers, maybe you want to get some Anaheims or some ghost peppers. But, whatever you like to grow, be sure you get a few seeds and have a few pepper seeds. True rehabilitation. Every mind which is split needs rehabilitation. Every mind which is split needs rehabilitation. The medical orientation to rehabilitation emphasizes the body, while the vocational orientation stresses the ego. The team, and that's in quotes, the team approach generally leads more to confusion than to anything else, because it is too often misused as a way of exerting the ego's domination over other egos, rather than as a real experiment in the cooperation of minds. Wow, well, there'd be a little if you're in group therapy, try to think along the lines of moving it into the useful way of looking at it, which is a real experiment in the cooperation of minds, rather than strong egos overpowering other egos. The ego, rehabilitation as a movement is an improvement over the overt neglect of those in need of help, but it is often little more than a painful attempt on the part of the halt to lead the blind. Next paragraph, 104. So the thing I do like about that, Freud really offered a great assist to people, because he said, look, we got to help those people that are mentally hurt or in pain. And we don't just, set them in, there was a time where people just put them in an insane asylum or someplace, where you just lock them up and just leave them alone. Well, at least we're working towards a healing, and that he says that's good. The ego is likely to fear broken bodies because it cannot tolerate them. The ego cannot tolerate ego weakness either without ambivalence, because it is afraid of its own weakness as well as the weakness of its chosen home. And the other day we discussed ambivalence, the state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone. Well, let's look at that. Where are we at? I turned my page and now I'm not sure where I just read that. Let's just start in paragraph 104. The ego is likely to fear broken bodies because it cannot tolerate them. The ego cannot tolerate ego weakness either without ambivalence. So what you can use your definition, and there's what I was trying to show you. So when you're reading that, go back and actually use the definition description for ambivalence there. The ego cannot tolerate ego weakness either without contradictory ideas about it or about something. Okay, so ambivalence. Trying to help you see a way to where you can integrate the meaning into the sentence and try to give it a richer explanation, because if you really didn't let a word go by that you didn't look up and understand, put the definition in the sentence until it makes a deeper, richer meaning, it'll help you immensely. So don't just, if there's a word you don't know, and there's a lot of words in here that may not be used in every day, so you may have to look them up. And ambivalence is a good example, perhaps, for most of us. The ego is likely to fear broken bodies because it cannot tolerate them. The ego cannot tolerate ego weakness either without ambivalence, because it is afraid of its own weakness as well as the weakness of its chosen home. So just put in the definition. There's what I'm trying to get you to see till it kind of makes a little more clarity come to you. When it is threatened, the ego blocks your natural impulse to help, placing you under the strain of divided will. Your natural impulse is to help, which is harmlessness. Remember, we learned that harmlessness and helpfulness go together. They're the same thing. When it is threatened, the ego blocks your natural impulse to help, placing you under the strain of divided will. You may then be tempted to withdraw to allow your ego to recover and to gain enough strength to be helpful again, on a basis limited enough not to threaten your ego, but too limited to give you joy. Oh my. Let's read that again. You may then be tempted to withdraw to allow your ego to recover and to gain enough strength to be helpful again, on a basis limited enough not to threaten your ego, but too limited to give you joy. If you threaten the ego, that may be the path to joy, is what he's saying. Those with broken bodies are often looked down on by the ego because of its belief that nothing but a perfect body is worthy of its own temple. 105. A mind that recoils from a hurt body is in great need of rehabilitation itself. A mind that recoils from a hurt body, whether it's your hurt body or somebody else's hurt body, is in great need of rehabilitation. All symptoms of hurt need true helpfulness, and whenever they are met with this, the mind that so meets them heals itself. Rehabilitation is an attitude of praising God as He Himself knows praise. Being truly helpful, that's how you praise God. Remember, we learned that earlier in this chapter. Rehabilitation is an attitude of praising God as He Himself knows praise. He offers praise to you, and you must offer it to others. He offers healing to you too. The chief handicaps of the clinician lie in their attitudes to those whom their egos perceive as weakened and damaged. By these evaluations, they have weakened and damaged their own helpfulness and have thus set their own rehabilitation back. Rehabilitation is not concerned either with the ego's fight for control or its need to avoid and withdraw. You can do much on behalf of your own rehabilitation and that of others if in a situation calling for healing, you think of it this way: I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Christ who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Oh, isn't it beautiful, beautiful? It's something you might want to set to memory. We probably ought to make a little song about that one, but not today. I am here only, you can make it yourself though, you know. Just hum a little tune that you like or make up one and put the words to it. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Christ who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. What a beautiful, beautiful statement. Okay, let's go take a look at, and let's do a little short meditation. And you know, we won't take 5 minutes right now. We'll just take a couple minutes. I don't really time these, but you know, we'll just take a little time and get it close. Get you started anyway. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And then his examples were, I see myself as imposed on. I see myself as depressed. I see myself as failing. I see myself as endangered. I see myself as helpless. but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as victorious, but my mind is part of God's. I see myself as holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as victorious, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as losing out, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as charitable. I see myself as virtuous. I see myself, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Now you fill in. Let's take a minute. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Now do another one. I see myself as but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Let's do another one. I see myself as, you filled in. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. I see myself as but my mind is part of God's. I'm very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. One more time. I see myself as but my mind is part part of God's. I'm very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Our minds are part of God's. We are very holy. Say that to yourself today. I am part of God's. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy.